everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing how to add and subtract fractions with Maths Level 53. And before we start this video, please make sure to check out my other videos on my channel. Okay, let's get started. The first thing we need to do before we start any of this adding is we need to define what a fraction is. So there are two types of fractions. First type is improper fractions, and the second type are mixed fractions. So basically, you might be wondering what this actually means. Improper fraction is when, and before I explain what it is, I'll show you. So say the fraction was 7/8. Say it was that. This number here, above this line, is called the numerator. And this number below the line is called a denominator. So basically, an improper fraction is when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So an example of an improper fraction could be 15/7. Because as you can see, the numerator is much bigger than the denominator. So let's get on to what a mixed fraction is. A mixed fraction is when it's a fraction but with a whole number before it. So an example of a mixed fraction is 2 1/2, because 2 is a whole number and 1/2 is a fraction. Okay, now let's start adding our fractions. So let's do the question of 3/8 plus 4/8. In this question, it is quite easy to understand how to do it because these two denominators are the same. As you can see, they're both 8. So what we do when the denominator is the same, we just add across. So 3 plus 4 is 7, but you don't add the 8 and 8, you keep it the same, and 8. Now let's try a little bit harder. Second question is 7/8 plus 2/4. So, as you can see, the denominators are not the same, but there is a way of making both of the denominators equal. So we are going to try to make this 4 the same denominator as 8, which we can do because you do 4 times 2. You could do 4 times 2 to get to 8, and now you can see that the denominator will be 8. So let's do a little working here. So we've done 2/4, we've times it by 2 to get to 8. And now, whatever you do to the bottom, you must always do to the top. So you also times 2 by 2. And that will give you 4/8. And now what you do is you add that 4/8 to 7/8. So basically the answer would be 11/8. But as you can see, that's an improper fraction, and normally most textbooks and teachers want the mixed number answer unless it specifically asks for an improper fraction. So basically, we see that this denominator is over 8. And we think, how many times does 8 go into 11? And we know that 8 goes into 11 once equally without having any numbers left over. But we know that there's still another 3 left. So there's 1. So another way of saying 11/8, it also means 1. And it also means 1 and 4, 3/8. So the answer is 1 3/8, or 11 over 8. Now let's try it again to make sure you've completely understood it. Let's try 5/6 plus 1/3. Again, the same principle. You need to try to make sure the smaller denominator is the same as the biggest denominator. So that's 6 and 3. As we know, we can do some workings down here. We know that 3 goes into 6 2 times, so we can show in our workings. That'll be 6. Remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So you times this by 2 as well. And that's 2. So the answer is 2 over 6. And then we add that to 5 over 6. And you know that it gives us 7 over 6. But again, that's an improper fraction and we want to change it to a mixed number. So what we do is we think how many 6's go into 7. We remember 1 6 is going to 7. So the answer could also be 1 and 1/6 because there was 1 left over with that 7. Okay, now let's try subtracting fractions. It's completely the same principle. So let's try 5/6 minus 4/6. Now, the same principle as adding, but it's subtracting. Because both of the denominators are the same, we can subtract across. So 5 minus 4 is 1, and remember, you don't minus the denominator, so it's also 6. Let's try something a bit more challenging. Now let's do 1/2 minus 1/6. As you can see, the denominators aren't the same. It's basically the same principle as adding, but it's subtracting. So we can do workings down here. 1/2. We know that 2 goes into 6 3 times. So if we do workings here, we can do times 3 would give us 6. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So you also times this by 3. So times by 3, and that would give you 3. So that's 3/6. And now what you do is we have 3/6 and it's the same amount as 1/6. So we put the equal sign. We minus across, so it's 3/6 minus 1/6, and we know that that is 2/6. Now let's try again to make sure you've got it. So let's try 1/2 minus 1/12. Same principle. We look at this and we see they are not the same. So we think how many times does 2 go into 12? So we can do workings down here, 1/2. We know that if we times the 2 by 6, it would give us 12. And whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So you also times this by 6, that'll give you 6/12. And now we know that we can minus across. So 6/12 minus 1/12 equals 5/12. And just to make you remember, you always do to the top. So, I hope you've enjoyed today's video and now understand how to add and subtract fractions. Please smash the like button and subscribe. Bye from Math Lover 53.